And now, live from Nashville, Tennessee, it's the Dave Nemo Show.
Well, we talked about insurance in one sense yesterday with Dan Murray from Attring on the Air. It's part and parcel of the operational costs study that Attring does each year since 2008. Insurance rates are going up, accidents are going down. That's kind of counterintuitive, but there's all kinds of insurance, and not the least of which is health insurance. And we're going to kind of zero in on that this morning with Tim Aschoff. And of course, Tim by now, he's the president of Shaffer Trucking, COO of Crete Carrier Corporation. And Tim has some information for all drivers about what you need to know and what you need to get and what maybe you don't want to get, and some questions that need to be asked that a lot of folks may not remember about, such as what about spouses and families and things like that. So Tim joins us here in just a moment. Tim Aschoff joins us from Crete Shaffer and Hunt. Hey, Tim, good morning.
Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Fantastic. I was kidding around with Jim Park on our Canada Calling. He's an award-winning journalist and photographer, and I said, well, Jim gives us the picture and the 1,000 words. And speaking of, before we get into talking about some health insurance issues, Tim, it's about time to prepare for winter travel, and you guys got some YouTube videos up.
Yes, we do. It's amazing how fast time does go, and certainly through the summer months already into that nice crisp fall, and now it's time where we start to have chain laws in effect, and pretty soon the white stuff will be flying. So we have some videos out there on YouTube for the assistance of our drivers and others out there on chaining up, on pre-trip inspections, and knowing your truck, and knowing when to slow down and get off the road when you need to due to weather conditions. And so we thought it'd be helpful for everyone to know that out there. If you just go out on YouTube and search for the Crete Carrier winter travel, and you should be able to find some of these chain-up videos and otherwise.
Fantastic. Crete Carrier winter travel. And now let's kind of get to go from the road to the desk here. It's really hard to know exactly what kind of coverage you need sometimes, and you don't know in many cases until you don't need it. Kind of unrelated, but I know from personal experience that so many people in South Carolina won't have flood insurance, but they'll think they have it under their homeowners, and you know how that goes. The folks who have flood insurance probably won't have the kind of coverage that will cover their possessions, furniture, things like that. So you think you know, and then you find out you really didn't know very much. And it's almost a continuous process of education, isn't it?
It is, and it seems to get more and more complicated every day. I think there were some goals with the Affordable Care Act to make some things easier, but I certainly haven't seen that that's the case yet.
I remember back in, it's probably the first iteration of the FMCSA hours of service changes when they were born back in 2000, and they came out with the wallet card that synopsized the regs, and the more compact and clear they tried to make it, the more questions it brought out. I mean, which is crazy. So at any rate, when it comes to health insurance, you really got to know what the benefits are to yourself and then to your family. Are they in? Are they out? Do they need? What do they need? So you got health, dental, vision. What kind of walk us through some of those minefields, Tim?
Sure. Let me start with health, because that's often the most important to all of us, and certainly particularly those of us with families. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of things that you need to be mindful of. I think we all think, each week or every other week, depending on how we get paid, I need to see how much they're going to take out of my check for my health care coverage, and that's it. So, but there's certainly a lot more to it than that. And, this is coming upon what's called open enrollment season for, many healthcare plans, where if you need to make some changes or otherwise in your plan, now's the time period you get to do it, because there's very strict regulations on healthcare plans on when people can make changes, but we can get to that a little bit later. I think, first of all, you do need to know what is your total cost to the plan. So as I mentioned, you do have that monthly premium, but plans are set up in many different ways, and understanding that is important. Typically most plans will have a deductible, and that deductible may apply to you as an individual, but may also then, if you have family members on the plan, there may be a separate deductible for a family. So, like for example, our Crete Shaffer plan, we have $1,000 deductible for individuals, and then an aggregate of $2,000 for the family. So once your family hits that $2,000, you're done paying the deductible. But beyond that, their plans then send up other ways to kind of share in the cost, so to speak, and some of those do that by having co-pays. So, for example, whenever you go to the doctor, you may have to pay $25 to just because you've done a doctor visit, and that's outside of that deductible. Our plan doesn't have that. The only copay we have is for medical emergencies, but some do. And then often plans have what's called a maximum out-of-pocket cost that kind of puts that all together and puts a limit on that. So I guess the moral of that portion of the benefit discussion here is that, certainly be aware that your costs as a covered member of a plan goes well beyond your monthly premium. And to really compare benefits, you do have to look into these other factors and consider, what will the deductible be? Are there co-pays, and how much will they be, and et cetera, et cetera. So be sure you really know and understand first your own out-of-pocket costs.
When it comes, and you mentioned health is the most important, but we do have dental and we do have vision. And when it comes to dental, I know from my own experience, and you too probably, is that even if you have some kind of dental insurance, it's really never very much. And if you really want like full coverage, it's really in many cases just not worth it, But maybe you get a couple of cleanings a year, and that's about all you're going to get on a basic policy. And then you find out the hard way that crown isn't covered. They call it a crown because it might as well.
Well, again, the devil is in the details here, and one thing about the dental insurance and why it's a little bit different than health is that typically they're easier to get on and off the dental insurance plan. So what the dental insurance companies don't want is, does somebody just get on the policy for a month and get the crowns and get all the major work you need and then get off. And so a lot of those, as you mentioned, they in initial periods of the plan will cover things such as all the preventative procedures, your checkups, your cleanings, some basic sealants and some other things. But there's often, for those plans that do cover it, there's some waiting periods before the crowns and some of the other things are covered. For example, our dental plan does cover crowns, but there is an 18-month waiting period before those are covered. So it would cover it, but you just can't go on this month and then get it and then go. It's for those that are, really making the investment in the dental insurance for the longer haul. And then there's other things that are even more basic, I think, as you may or may not be aware. People may not be aware, fillings, for example. A lot of people like to get the white fillings in their teeth now. Well, some plans don't cover the white. They make you use the old metallic, and ours, for example, does cover that. And I guess I was wrong in here, and just looking quick, our crown waiting period is only 6 months, not the 18 months. So, but again, that goes to show you, even for, people that have information right at their fingertips like I do, I got to sort through the details and know what I'm getting. So you do make a good point on that dental insurance. I think what we've found is if you've got a family and particularly have children, it is probably more valuable to you than maybe just if you're on your own and have good teeth, so to speak.
And FSA, and I forgot, I used to know what that means, and I don't know what it is.
The flexible spending account is what the FSA means, and then there's a couple aspects to this, and I do think this is one of those benefits out there that is underutilized by many people. What that is, a flexible spending account allows employees to put aside money out of their paycheck into basically this is what they call the flexible spending account. It's almost like a savings account, and how it works is it's taking out of the money that you decide to take out, and there's some rules on how much you can take out. I think the limit right now is about $2,600 per year. That money's taken out of each paycheck in a certain amount and put into this basically like a savings account. And then when you have any health care related expenses, it's paid out through that account. For example, we have this program, and our employees that are in that account, they get like a credit card. And so when they go to a doctor's office and have a copay or a deductible, they give them that credit card, and it pulls that money out of their account. The benefit to the employees is all that money is put into that account pre-tax, so there's not the withholding or the employment taxes on that. So basically, you're able to go out, and the money you spend on your health care expenses, you're essentially not paying taxes on that. So that can be obviously a very good benefit. They also have those types of accounts for dependent care. So if you have child care for obviously your dependents, you can use a similar setup and have a flexible spending account for that. And I think the limits on that are up to $5,000 a year that can be put in that, because I think for those of us that have children that need to be in a daycare is not cheap. So the $5,000 limit matches more what you may have in expenses there.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So there's a lot of things to consider, and you really need to review your insurance needs on a regular basis. And the insurance companies will send out things in terms of their reviews, generally speaking, once a year. Just got mine. I'm on Medicare, so we've got some, increases on copays and things like that, which is, not unexpected. But you kind of want to be prepared for that. What do you guys recommend to your folks in terms of, taking a look at insurance? Nobody wants to do it, of course,
Right.
But it's something that really will save you a lot of heartache and last-minute decisions too.
Yeah, the first thing is don't ignore it. I mean, it's so. I'm like you. The booklet I get in the mail is about 60 pages covering all of our benefits and the changes and what we need to do. So it's a lot of information, and a lot of that is actually required to be sent out by government regulations. So in some ways, it's not necessarily the insurance companies trying to confuse us or otherwise. They're required to provide a lot of information. But certainly, as you mentioned, you really need to know and understand the coverage you have today. And if you need to make any changes or want to make any changes going forward, as I mentioned, it's the government regulations often also limit when you can make changes. A lot of it has to do, you can make changes if you change jobs, if you get married or divorced, you have children, you lose your health care coverage. But there are typical times you can make changes. But the other is if there's an allowed open enrollment period. So that's a time period of time, generally about 30 days, where you can make changes to your plan, whether it's add a subscriber. So say you don't have your spouse covered now and you want to add them. Well, that's just a time period where you can do that. And it's very important to you, as you mentioned, not to wait till the last minute, because often plans require, if you're going to add a dependent, whether a spouse or a child, you need to show proof that they're a dependent. So you got to go find your marriage certificate or your child's birth certificate, and of course there's got to be the government issued one with the seal and everything else. So if you're like many folks and can't quite remember where that is, and it's the day before you have to do it, you could run into a time crunch there that you don't want to get stuck with.
Indeed. We're going to, speaking of time crunch, we don't want to run into that. We're going to take a break right here, and we'll be back with more insurance talk here this morning with Tim Aschoff, President of Shaffer, COO of Crete Carriers, and we'll be right back. Tim Aschoff with us from Crete Shaffer Hunt, and we're talking health insurance. And sometimes, speaking of hunt, I'll do a little pun here, Tim, but sometimes when you're hunting for insurance, you forget to talk to your spouse about what they have or don't have.
That's right, man, because often, many families now have multiple employed members, the employee, the spouse, and even some of the children now, and with the Affordable Care Act, children can be still on a parent's plan up to age 26. So it is important to know, what everyone that has availability to a plan, what those plans are. Again, what are the intricate details of the plans and how do they compare? And look at what is the best overall option for you. Sometimes the best option is to everyone be on one plan and have family coverage. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the individual option at separate employees is the better. And then sometimes you got to look at, okay, how does that impact, for example, the flexible spending account? Can I have two flexible spending accounts at two different employers, or when I file my taxes, is that going to cause implications, and some things that you really kind of need to do some homework on. So again, I think as you said earlier, this isn't something you want to put off till the night before. It is something you need to really think about.
Yeah, because sometimes you can meet the deadline, but depending on where you are in that enrollment period, that still will determine when your coverage will start. And I made the classic mistake of enrolling during the enrollment period, and I did it way late and found out the hard way that, that's fine, but now your enrollment date is a couple months ahead down the line because you waited too long. I didn't jump on the bandwagon when the bandwagon was just starting up. So, I learned that lesson the hard way, and it's an easy thing to do.
That's a very important point, not only knowing that during these open enrollment periods, but if you're going on with a new company, how long is the waiting period before your coverage is effective? And, for example, our waiting period is, the first of the month after you've been with us for 30 days, so, a relatively short period of time, but it can be up.
That's not bad, frankly.
Yeah, a lot of some companies can have 90 days, 120 days, or longer. So knowing that and understanding that's also very important. But there's also a lot of other benefits beyond health insurance that provide some additional, I'll call it perks, if you enroll in those right away. For example, we have a short-term disability, we have life insurance, and some other accident and critical care insurance that's available. That if you get it when you are first employed, they have what's called automatic guaranteed underwriting, where because you're a part of the Crete Carrier Shaffer trucking plan, you don't have to go through individual health screening or otherwise to see, well, how healthy are you for your life insurance, and what will your premiums be? And so, there's a lot of things that go on when you start a new job, and there's a lot of paperwork a lot of drivers have to do. But I'd say, look at these things very carefully, and what are the benefits of different companies? There's I mentioned short-term disability. This is almost like the flood insurance you mentioned earlier. You never really think you're going to need it, and don't even really know if you have it. But we offer all of our drivers get at no cost a short-term disability plan that will provide them essentially 22 weeks of benefits after about a month elimination period. So if for some reason you get injured and you're not able to work or otherwise become disabled, there are other disability benefits out there from Social Security and otherwise, but most of those don't kick in until after 6 months. So we provide our drivers this short-term disability that provides that gap coverage to give them benefits until that 6-month period. And you don't think about it again, but when you're because we all think we're invincible, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to drive, and nothing's ever going to happen to me, or I'm not going to get in an accident and get injured or otherwise. But then when it does, and you have to wait 6 months for Social Security or other benefits to kick in, it can be a tough 6 months. And so you got to really look in the details of what are the benefits out there. Life insurance too. All of our drivers, we give $20,000 of life insurance automatically, and then after they're here with us for a year, that goes up to $50,000, and that's benefit they get that's not taxed. The government allows you to give up to a $50,000 benefit without tax. So just these other benefits out there beyond even the health care that you really do need to pay attention to, because like auto insurance, like flood insurance, and otherwise, you hope you never have to use them. But boy, when you need them, you really need them.
Were you an insurance broker in another life? Man.
Well,
got it.
I do have to admit, prior to my current role, I did come up through the ranks here as a vice president of risk management at once. So yes, these benefits and insurance were under my umbrella, so I got to know them really pretty well. So
I did not know that, and I wonder why he picked this topic. But it's really important. It really is. And another thing too, and we'll kind of close with this because it's something that I'm glad you put into the notes, Tim, and that is to basically review all of your documents, paychecks, and everything, because errors can and will be made. Everybody's human.
Yes, absolutely. Again, as I mentioned, whenever you're either going through open enrollment for benefits or even starting with new with the company, there are so many things that we all have had to do it. We've had to fill out a lot of information. We've had to elect what coverages we want, what we don't want. If you're going to do a flexible spending account, how much do I want to take out each week? Well, then all of that has to be processed, and it's processed by humans, and sometimes we make mistakes in filling out the forms, and then others times when it's inputted into the system, there may be mistakes. So that first check of that is when you start getting your paychecks and what is being taken out of my paycheck, and what do I have for coverage and otherwise. And I just encourage everybody to really pay attention to that closely, because as I mentioned, you can't change the elections you've made easily. And so once you make that election and once it starts coming out, double check and ensure that that's exactly what you wanted and that there weren't any mistakes made by anybody, because otherwise you may have to live with that for a 12-month period until that next open enrollment period, and that may not be what you need for you or for your family.
Indeed. Wow, some really good advice, really good insight, Tim. Thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for sharing your expertise here.
I enjoy doing it, and hopefully it was helpful to all of you. And again, do your homework, look at the benefits the company has, and look for those gold standard benefits like Crete and Shaffer have, because